Maya Zimmerman stared at her phone, reading the text from an unknown number for the third time. "Hey, I'll be there at 7 for the pitch meeting, and I'm bringing the revised contracts." She bit her lip, then typed back quickly. "I think you have the wrong number. I don't have any pitch meetings scheduled." The response came within seconds. "Very funny, Rob, just be ready." Maya laughed and wrote back, "Seriously, I'm not Rob, you've texted the wrong person." There was a longer pause this time. Then, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. My assistant must have given me the wrong contact. This is embarrassing." "No worries," Maya replied, smiling at her screen. "Hope your meeting goes well anyway." She expected that to be the end of it, but another message popped up. "Thanks. Now I'm paranoid I've been texting the wrong person all week. Please tell me we haven't been discussing confidential business matters." "Nope, this is the first message I've gotten from this number," Maya assured him. "That's a relief. Again, sorry for the confusion." Maya set her phone down and went back to her laptop, where she'd been reviewing applications for the youth center, where she worked as a program coordinator. It was rewarding work, helping kids from difficult backgrounds find their footing through after-school programs and mentorship. But the pay was modest, and the hours were long. She just finished reading through a particularly moving essay from a teenager hoping to join their summer arts program when her phone buzzed again. "Out of curiosity, what kind of meeting did I accidentally invite you to?" Maya grinned. There was something charming about this stranger's continued conversation. "You said something about a pitch meeting and contracts. Sounds very official and intimidating." "It's really not that exciting, just business. What do you do that's actually interesting?" She considered not answering. After all, this was a random person who'd texted the wrong number, but something about the casual tone made her want to continue. "I work at a youth center in Brooklyn. We run programs for kids who need a safe place after school. Today, I've been reading applications for our summer program and trying not to cry at my desk. The good kind of crying or the bad kind? The good kind. These kids have been through so much, but they're still hopeful and creative and resilient. It reminds me why I do this." "That sounds genuinely meaningful. I'm impressed." Maya found herself smiling at her phone like an idiot. "What about you? What's this mysterious pitch meeting for?" "I work in real estate development. Today's meeting was for a new project in Manhattan, not nearly as noble as what you do." "Hey, everyone needs places to live and work, right? That's generous of you. Most people hear real estate developer and think greedy corporate shark." "Are you a greedy corporate shark?" Maya typed playfully. "Only on Tuesdays. Today's Wednesday, so you're safe." Maya laughed out loud, drawing a curious glance from her coworker Jennifer at the next desk. She waved her off and typed back, "Good to know. I'll make sure all my texting with wrong numbers happens on Wednesdays from now on. Probably a wise policy." They texted back and forth for another 20 minutes, trading jokes and small observations about their days. When Maya finally looked up, she realized she'd been grinning at her phone for the better part of half an hour. The stranger, whose name she didn't even know, had somehow made her Wednesday afternoon significantly brighter. Before she could overthink it, she sent one more message. "I should probably get back to work, but this was fun. Good luck with your pitch meeting. It went well, actually. Thanks for the good wishes, and sorry again for the confusion." "No need to apologize. It was the most interesting wrong number I've ever gotten." She thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning, as she was riding the subway to work, her phone buzzed with a message from the same unknown number. "Random question. What's your opinion on pineapple on pizza?" Maya couldn't help but smile. She typed back, "Strongly pro-pineapple. I know it's controversial, but I stand by it." Finally, someone with sense. My business partner thinks I'm insane. Your business partner is the insane one. Sweet and savory is a perfect combination. That's what I said. He looked at me like I'd suggested putting ice cream on a hamburger. Now that would be weird, although I once knew someone who dipped fries in milkshakes. That's actually not bad. The sweet salty thing again. And just like that, they were texting again. Maya found herself looking forward to the messages from the unknown number, which continued sporadically throughout the day. They talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, worst first date stories, the best pizza places in New York, whether hot dogs counted as sandwiches. By Friday, Maya realized she was checking her phone more often than usual, hoping for another message. When her phone finally buzzed during her lunch break, she grabbed it eagerly. "So I have a confession to make," the message read. Maya's heart did a weird little skip. "Should I be worried? I've been looking forward to texting you all day. Is that weird? We don't even know each other's names." Relief washed over her, followed by a warm flutter in her chest. "It's not weird. I've been doing the same thing, actually." "Should we fix the name situation?" Maya hesitated. There was something nice about the anonymity, the freedom to just be herself without any context or history. But she also wanted to know more about this person who'd accidentally stumbled into her life. "I'm Maya," she typed. "Dominic. Nice to officially meet you, Maya." "Nice to meet you too, Dominic. This is probably the strangest way I've ever made a friend." "Friend? Are we friends now? I don't know. What else would you call it? I'm not sure, but I like it, whatever it is." Over the following weeks, their texting became a daily routine. Maya would wake up to a good morning message from Dominic. They'd text throughout the day, sharing random thoughts and observations. He'd tell her about frustrating meetings with city planners or difficult negotiations with contractors. She'd vent about budget cuts at the youth center or share sweet stories about the kids she worked with. Maya learned that Dominic had a dry sense of humor and a surprising amount of knowledge about architecture and design. He learned that she'd grown up in a small town in Ohio, moved to New York for college, and stayed because she fell in love with the city's energy. They discovered they both loved old movies, terrible reality TV they'd never admit to watching in public, and taking long walks even in bad weather. But they never talked on the phone, they never video chatted, and they never made plans to meet in person. It existed in this strange, comfortable bubble where they could be completely honest with each other without the pressure of real-world expectations. Don't you think this is a little odd? Maya's best friend, Sarah, asked one evening over drinks. They were at their favorite bar in Park Slope, and Maya had just spent 5 minutes smiling at her phone instead of paying attention to the conversation. "What's odd?" Maya asked, finally looking up. "You've been texting this guy for over a month and you've never even heard his voice. He could be anyone." "I know who he is. We talk every day." "But you don't really know him, Maya. You don't know what he looks like. You don't know what he does exactly. Has he even told you his last name?" Maya frowned. "It hasn't come up." "Doesn't that seem strange to you? What if he's hiding something?" "He's not hiding anything. We're taking things slow." "You can't take things slow if you never actually move forward," Sarah pointed out gently. "I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I just don't want you to get hurt." Maya wanted to argue, but Sarah had a point. As much as she felt like she knew Dominic, there was a lot they didn't talk about. He was vague about the specifics of his work, never mentioning company names or project details. She'd never asked for his last name, and he'd never offered it. Their relationship existed entirely in text messages, in this pocket of intimacy that somehow felt both deeply personal and strangely distant. That night, lying in bed, Maya stared at her phone. She opened her text thread with Dominic and scrolled through months of conversations. Thousands of messages. Jokes, confessions, late-night rambling, good morning greetings, encouragement during hard days. It felt real. But was it? She started typing. "Can I ask you something?" His response came quickly. "Of course, anything." "Why haven't we ever talked on the phone or met in person?" There was a long pause. Maya watched the three dots appear and disappear several times. Finally, "Honestly, I've been afraid to suggest it." "Afraid of what?" "That the real me won't live up to whoever you think I am through these texts." Maya's heart clenched. "I could say the same thing." "You shouldn't. You seem pretty amazing from where I'm sitting." "You can't even see where I'm sitting," Maya typed, trying to lighten the mood. "Fair point." "Maybe we should fix that." Maya took a deep breath. "Are you asking to meet me?" "I'm asking if you'd want to meet me. If it's too soon or too weird, I understand." She thought about it for a moment. The smart thing would probably be to suggest a phone call first, to take it slow. But Maya had never been particularly good at taking it slow when she wanted something. "I'd like that," she typed. "When?" "This Saturday. We could meet for coffee, somewhere public so you feel safe." "There's a cafe in Union Square, the Blue Bottle on 5th Avenue. Does 1 o'clock work?" "It's a date." Maya stared at those three words, her pulse quickening. "Is it? Do you want it to be?" She bit her lip, then typed, "Yes." "Then it's a date." For the rest of the week, Maya was a bundle of nerves. She changed her outfit 17 times on Saturday morning, before finally settling on jeans and a soft green sweater that Sarah had once said made her eyes look bright. She arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, ordered a latte she was too anxious to drink, and claimed a table by the window where she could watch for him. The problem was, she had no idea what Dominic looked like. She'd never asked for a photo, caught up in the romance of their anonymous connection. Now she realized how impractical that was. She found herself studying every man who walked past the window, wondering if each one might be him. At exactly 1 o'clock her phone buzzed. "I'm here." Blue sweater, table by the window. Maya looked up and saw a man standing near the entrance, holding his phone and scanning the cafe. When their eyes met, he smiled, and Maya felt her breath catch. Dominic was tall, with dark hair and the kind of strong jawline that belonged in cologne commercials. He wore dark jeans and a gray Henley that fit him perfectly, and when he walked toward her table, she noticed several other women in the cafe tracking his movement. But his eyes were only on her. "Maya?" he asked, even though they both clearly knew the answer. "Dominic." She stood up awkwardly, not sure whether to shake his hand or hug him or what. He solved the problem by pulling out the chair across from her and sitting down with an easy smile. "You're even prettier than I imagined." She felt her cheeks heat. "You imagined what I looked like, of course." "I spent way too much time trying to picture the person behind those messages." His smile turned slightly sheepish. "I was way off, but I'm not complaining." "How were you off?" "I don't know. I pictured someone different. The reality is much better." They sat there grinning at each other like idiots for a moment before Maya laughed. "This is so weird, right? We've been talking for months, but this feels like a first meeting." "It is a first meeting, just with a lot more context than usual." Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying her. "It's strange hearing your voice. I've been reading your messages in my head for so long, I'd invented what you sounded like. And also wrong, but also better." They talked for 3 hours. The conversation flowed as easily in person as it had over text, maybe even easier. Maya found herself laughing more than she had in months, watching the way Dominic's eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way he leaned forward when she talked like he didn't want to miss a single word. He asked about her work at the youth center, and she found herself telling him about Marcus, a 15-year-old who'd just gotten accepted into a prestigious art program, and about Jasmine, who'd been coming to the center since she was 8 and now volunteered there as a high school senior. Dominic listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and seeming genuinely interested in the kids' stories. When she turned the questions back to him, asking about his work in real estate development, he was more forthcoming than he'd been over text. "I focus mainly on mixed-use developments," he explained. "Residential spaces with commercial ground floors. The goal is to create communities, not just buildings." "That sounds ambitious." "It is, and expensive, and complicated." He ran a hand through his hair. "But when it works, when you see people actually living and thriving in spaces you helped create, it's worth all the headaches." "How did you get into it?" "My father was in construction. I grew up on job sites, learning how buildings went up from the ground. When I was old enough, I realized I was less interested in the how and more interested in the why. Why we build, what makes a space work for people, how design affects the way we live." He shrugged. "Real estate development let me ask those questions on a larger scale." The way he talked about his work, Maya could see the passion behind it. This wasn't just a job for him. It was something he cared about deeply. "What's your current project?" she asked. He hesitated slightly. "It's a development in Midtown. Still in the early stages, so I probably shouldn't say too much. Top secret." "Something like that." He smiled, but there was something guarded in his expression that hadn't been there before. Maya wanted to push, but she also didn't want to ruin the easy flow of their conversation. So she let it go and steered the talk back to safer territory. When they finally left the cafe, the sun was starting to sink lower in the sky. Dominic walked her to the subway station, and at the entrance, they stood facing each other awkwardly. "I had a really good time," Maya said. "Me too." Dominic reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so natural and intimate that Maya's heart skipped. "Can I see you again? I'd like that." "Tomorrow," Maya laughed. Eager. Very. He wasn't smiling when he said it, and the intensity in his eyes made her stomach flip. "Tomorrow works." They saw each other the next day for brunch, and the day after that for a walk through Prospect Park. Within 2 weeks, they were seeing each other almost every day. Their texting continued, but now it was supplemented with phone calls, with evenings spent together watching movies on her couch, with long dinners at small restaurants where they talked until the staff started giving them pointed looks. Maya had dated before. She'd had relationships, some serious, some casual, but nothing had ever felt like this. With Dominic, everything was easy. They never ran out of things to talk about. The silences between them were comfortable rather than awkward. When he touched her, even just a casual hand on her back or his fingers laced through hers, she felt it everywhere. "You're glowing," Jennifer said at work one morning about 3 months after that first coffee date. "This guy must be something special." Maya couldn't keep the smile off her face. "He really is. When do we get to meet him?" "Soon, maybe. We're still kind of in our own bubble." It was true. Despite how serious things felt between them, they hadn't really merged their lives in the traditional sense. She hadn't met his friends or family. He'd never been to the youth center to see her at work. They existed in this space that was just theirs, separate from everything else. Maya told herself it was romantic. They were building their own world together, getting to know each other without outside interference. But sometimes, late at night, she'd remember Sarah's warning about not really knowing him, and she'd wonder what she was missing. The cracks started to show small at first. Dominic would cancel plans last minute because of work emergencies. He'd disappear for hours without responding to texts. When she asked about his day, his answers were sometimes frustratingly vague. "I'm sorry," he'd say after showing up an hour late to dinner. "Things ran long at the office." "What things?" "Just meetings. nothing interesting. She wanted to call him out on it, but she also didn't want to be that girlfriend, the one who demanded constant explanations and transparency. So she'd smile and say it was fine, even though a small knot of worry was starting to form in her chest. Things came to a head on a Friday evening 4 months into their relationship. They'd made plans to have dinner at her apartment. Maya had spent the afternoon preparing his favorite meal, chicken parmesan with homemade marinara sauce. She'd bought wine, put on music, and was feeling good about the evening ahead, but 6 o'clock came and went with no Dominic. Then 7. Then 8. She called twice and both times it went to voicemail. Her texts went unanswered. By 9 o'clock, Maya had gone from worried to angry. She ate the now cold dinner alone, drank half the bottle of wine by herself, and tried not to let the hurt overwhelm her. At 10:30, just as she was about to go to bed, her phone rang. "Maya, I'm so sorry." His voice was strained, exhausted. Her anger wavered slightly. "Where were you?" she asked, trying to keep her tone neutral. "Something came up at work, a major problem with one of our projects. I've been in emergency meetings all evening. You couldn't text, not once in 4 hours. My phone died and I didn't have a charger." I know that sounds like a terrible excuse, but it's the truth. Maya closed her eyes. "Dominic, I need you to be honest with me. Is there something going on that you're not telling me?" There was a long pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean you've been distant lately. Secretive. You cancel plans, you're vague about work, you never let me into certain parts of your life. If you're having second thoughts about us, I need you to just say it." "What? No, Maya, no, I'm not having second thoughts." He sounded genuinely distressed. "I'm crazy about you, you know that." "Then what's going on?" Another long pause. "Can we talk about this in person? Tomorrow?" "Why not now?" "Because it's complicated and I don't want to do this over the phone. Please, Maya, let me explain everything tomorrow." She wanted to demand answers now, but she was tired and hurt and didn't have the energy for a long conversation. "Fine, tomorrow. I'll come by at noon, and Maya, I really am sorry about tonight." She hung up without responding. The next morning, Maya woke up with a headache from the wine and a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She tried to distract herself with cleaning, with reading, with anything that would make the morning pass faster. But her mind kept circling back to Dominic's promise to explain everything. What was there to explain? What had he been hiding? At exactly noon, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Dominic standing there with flowers and a bag from her favorite bakery. "Before you say anything," he started, "I know flowers and pastries don't fix what happened last night. But I wanted to show you I was thinking about you." Maya took the offering silently and stepped aside to let him in. They sat on her couch and she waited for him to speak. Dominic took a deep breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you about who I am." Maya's heart sank. "Are you married?" "What? No, God, no, nothing like that." He ran a hand through his hair, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. "It's about my work, my family, my situation." "Your situation?" "My full name is Dominic Ashford, and my family, we have money, a lot of it." Maya stared at him. "Okay, I'm not just a real estate developer. My family owns Ashford Properties. We're one of the largest development companies in the country. When I said I was working on a project in Midtown, I wasn't just involved. I'm the CEO. It's my company." The words hung in the air between them. Maya processed what he was saying slowly. "You're rich," she said finally, "very rich. My family has been in real estate for 3 generations. We're worth—" He hesitated. "Billions." Maya stood up, needing to move. "Billions." "Yes. And you didn't think to mention this before now." "I wanted to. At first, I didn't say anything because I liked that you didn't know. Do you know what it's like when people find out you have money? Everything changes. They look at you differently. They want things from you, or they assume things about you. He stood too, moving toward her. When you texted me back that first day, you had no idea who I was. You were just yourself. Funny, smart, genuine. I fell for that version of you, the one who wasn't trying to impress me or use me for connections or money. So you lied to me. I didn't lie. I just omitted certain facts. That's basically lying, Dominic. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I wanted to tell you so many times, but the longer I waited, the harder it got. And I was scared that if you knew, everything would change between us. Maya sat back down, her mind racing. She thought about all their conversations, all the times he'd been vague about work, the expensive restaurants he'd casually suggested, the way he'd never worried about money, never mentioned prices or budgets. It all made sense now. Is that why you've been so secretive? Why I've never met your friends or seen where you work? He nodded. I have to be careful about my privacy. There are photographers sometimes, gossip sites. I didn't want you exposed to all that before you were ready. Before we were ready. Don't I get a say in when I'm ready? You're right. I handled this badly. I really care about you, Maya. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time. I didn't want to lose you. Maya looked at him, seeing him differently now. Not just Dominic, the guy who'd accidentally texted her and turned into something wonderful. But Dominic Ashford, billionaire CEO. It should have changed how she felt, but weirdly, it didn't. He was still the same person who texted her good morning every day, who remembered that she liked her coffee with 2 sugars, who'd listened patiently while she vented about difficult days at work. I need you to promise me something, she said finally. Anything. No more secrets. No more omitting facts because you're trying to protect me or whatever. If we're going to do this, I need complete honesty. Relief washed over his face. I promise. Complete honesty from now on. And I need time to process all of this. It's a lot. Of course. Take all the time you need. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Dominic told her about growing up in his family, about the pressure and expectations that came with the Ashford name. He talked about learning the business from his father, about taking over as CEO 3 years ago when his father retired. He showed her articles about Ashford properties, photos of buildings they'd developed across the country. Maya asked questions, lots of them. About his lifestyle, his responsibilities, what his day-to-day life was actually like. Some of it was overwhelming. The wealth, the fame, the constant public scrutiny, but other parts were just him. The work he was passionate about, the dreams he had for future projects, the way he lit up when talking about creating spaces that people loved. Does this change things between us? He asked quietly as the sun started to set. Maya considered the question carefully. I don't know yet. I need to figure out if I can fit into your world. You don't have to fit into my world. We can build our own world together. That's a nice thought, but it's not realistic, is it? You have obligations, appearances, a whole life that I'm not part of. Then become part of it. He took her hands. I know this is scary. It's scary for me too, but I meant what I said. I'm crazy about you, Maya. I don't want this to end because I was too scared to be honest from the start. Looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability and hope there, Maya felt her resistance crumbling. She was scared. This was way outside her comfort zone, but walking away from what they had because it was complicated seemed cowardly. Okay, she said softly. Okay, I want to try, but slowly. I need to adjust to all of this. Dominic pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Slowly. Whatever you need. The next few weeks were an adjustment period. Dominic kept his promise about honesty, answering every question Maya had about his life and his work. He introduced her to his assistant, Caroline, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who clearly ran his life with military precision. He showed her the Ashford Properties offices in downtown Manhattan. a sleek modern space that took up 3 floors of a building his company owned. Maya met some of his friends, other business owners and executives, who were friendly but clearly curious about the woman who'd captured Dominic Ashford's attention. She Googled herself and found a few photos of them together already circulating on social media and gossip sites, accompanied by speculation about who she was. It was surreal and sometimes overwhelming. But through it all, Dominic was patient and understanding. When she got anxious about a charity gala they were invited to, he sat with her and helped her find a dress, reassuring her that she didn't need to impress anyone. When she worried about photographers catching them on a date, he suggested quieter places where they could have privacy. Sarah was skeptical at first. A billionaire? Seriously? Maya, this is like something out of a movie. I know it sounds crazy. It is crazy, but if he makes you happy. Sarah studied her friend's face. He does make you happy, doesn't he? Maya nodded. He really does. Then I guess I'm happy for you. But if he ever hurts you, billionaire or not, I will take him down. Maya introduced Dominic to Sarah over dinner and watched nervously as her best friend grilled him with questions. But Dominic handled it with grace and humor, and by the end of the night, even Sarah seemed charmed. Okay, I get it, Sarah admitted as they said goodbye. He's pretty great. The real test came 2 months later when the youth center held its annual fundraiser gala. It was Maya's biggest event of the year, a chance to raise money for their programs and showcase what the kids had accomplished. She'd been planning it for months, and she desperately wanted it to go well. Dominic had offered to help with funding, but Maya had firmly declined. This is my thing. I need to do it on my own terms. He'd respected that, but he did attend the event, mingling with donors and board members like he was born to it. Maya watched him charm a wealthy widow into doubling her usual contribution and felt a surge of affection. He was using his skills and connections to help her cause without overshadowing her work. The highlight of the evening was when Marcus, the teenager Maya had mentioned months ago, unveiled his painting that would be auctioned off to benefit the center. It was stunning, a vibrant cityscape that captured the energy and chaos of New York. He's incredibly talented, Dominic said, standing beside Maya as they admired the work. He is. And because of this center, because of people who donate and support these programs, he's going to art school next year on a full scholarship. Dominic looked at her, something soft and admiring in his eyes. You did that. You and your team gave him that chance. We just provided the space. He did the work. Don't sell yourself short. What you do here matters. Later, when the auction started, Maya watched in shock as Dominic bid aggressively on Marcus's painting. He ended up winning it for $20,000, far more than they'd hoped to raise from a single piece. You didn't have to do that, Maya said, finding him afterward. I wanted to. It's a beautiful painting and the money goes to a good cause. $20,000 is a lot of money, he smiled. Not to me, and it's worth it to see you this happy. The fundraiser ended up being their most successful ever, raising enough to fund their programs for the next 18 months. Maya couldn't help but notice that several of the largest donations came from people Dominic had spent time talking to during the event. When she called him on it, he just shrugged. I might have mentioned what great work you do here. What they chose to donate is entirely their decision. She wanted to be annoyed at his interference, but she couldn't be. Not when it meant more kids would have access to the programs that could change their lives. As fall turned to winter, Maya and Dominic settled into a rhythm. They had their routines, their favorite restaurants, their Sunday morning tradition of reading the paper together over coffee and bagels. They had their first fight, a stupid argument about whose apartment they should spend Christmas at that ended with both of them laughing at how ridiculous they were being. They had their first "I love you," whispered by Dominic on a snowy evening in Central Park, with Maya saying it back without hesitation, because it was so obviously true. Meeting Dominic's family was intimidating. His parents lived in a mansion in Connecticut, the kind of place that belonged in magazines. His mother, Patricia, was elegant and composed, watching Maya with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His father, David, was gruffer but warmer, immediately pulling Maya into a conversation about the youth center and asking thoughtful questions about their programs. "So you're the girl who's been keeping our son so happy," Patricia said over dinner. "I try," Maya replied, earning a small smile. "Dominic tells us you work in youth services." "Yes, madam. I coordinate programs at a center in Brooklyn. That must be rewarding work." There was something in Patricia's tone that made Maya uncertain whether that was a compliment or a polite dismissal. But Dominic squeezed her hand under the table, a silent show of support. "It is," Maya said firmly. "The kids we work with are amazing. They just need someone to believe in them." David nodded approvingly. "The world needs more people like you." By the end of the evening, Maya felt like she'd passed some sort of test, though she wasn't entirely sure what it had been. In the car on the way back to the city, Dominic pulled her close. "You were perfect," he said. "Your mom is terrifying," he laughed. "She is, but she liked you. She told me so when you were in the bathroom." "Really, really. She said you were genuine and that you clearly weren't with me for my money." "Well, that's true. Your money is actually kind of inconvenient sometimes." "How so?" "It makes me question whether the things we do together are things you actually enjoy or just things you think I want to do." Dominic was quiet for a moment. "I enjoy anything we do together. But if you ever feel like I'm not being authentic about what I want, please tell me. I never want you to question whether I'm being real with you." It was conversations like that, honest and vulnerable, that made Maya certain she'd made the right choice in staying with him despite the complications his wealth brought into her life. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came changes. Maya was promoted to assistant director at the youth center, a recognition of her hard work and dedication. Dominic broke ground on his Midtown project, a mixed-use development that he'd been planning for years. They celebrated each other's victories and supported each other through the challenges. They also started talking about the future. Not in vague terms, but in concrete plans. Where they wanted to live, whether they wanted to stay in New York or spend time at other properties Dominic owned. Whether they wanted kids someday, what kind of life they wanted to build together. "I've been thinking," Dominic said one evening as they walked along the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, "about us, about where this is going." Maya's heart skipped, "And I want it to go everywhere." "I want everything with you, Maya. Marriage, kids, growing old together, all of it." "That's a pretty big statement, I know, and I'm not asking you to decide right now. I just want you to know where my head is, where my heart is." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "My heart is in the same place." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, with the city skyline behind them and the river flowing beneath them. It felt like a promise. 2 months later, on a warm evening in May, Dominic took Maya back to Union Square, to the Blue Bottle Cafe where they'd first met in person nearly a year ago. They ordered coffee and sat at the same table by the window, reminiscing about that first nervous meeting. "I was so worried you'd be disappointed," Dominic admitted. "Why would I be disappointed? I don't know. That I wouldn't live up to the person you'd built up in your head from our texts. I was worried about the same thing. You shouldn't have been." "You were perfect from that first wrong number text," Maya laughed. "I wasn't perfect. I'm still not perfect. Perfect for me then." Dominic reached across the table and took her hand. "Maya, this last year has been the best of my life. You've made me happier than I knew I could be." You've challenged me to be better, to think differently, to care about things beyond just business and profit margins. Dominic. He stood up and came around the table, and Maya's breath caught as he knelt down beside her chair. Around them, other cafe patrons started to notice, phones coming out to capture the moment. I know we've only known each other a year, Dominic continued, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Maya Zimmerman, will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a simple solitaire diamond that caught the light beautifully. It was elegant and understated, exactly what Maya would have chosen for herself. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, of course, yes. The cafe erupted in applause as Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. Maya laughed through her tears, overwhelmed by joy and love, and the sheer improbability of how they'd ended up here. I can't believe this started with a wrong number text, she said later as they walked through the city hand in hand. Best wrong number ever, Dominic agreed. What if you just shrugged it off? What if I hadn't responded? Then I would have missed out on the best thing that ever happened to me. He stopped and pulled her close. But we didn't miss out. We found each other, even if it was by accident. I don't think it was an accident. I think it was fate. You believe in fate now. I believe in us. That's close enough. The wedding was planned for the following spring, giving them time to organize the kind of event that merged both their worlds. It was held at a beautiful venue in the Hudson Valley, elegant but not ostentatious, with personal touches throughout. The youth center kids performed a special song during the ceremony. Marcus had designed their wedding invitations. Sarah was the maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony. Dominic's vows were simple and heartfelt. Maya, you saw me before you knew who I was. You loved me before you knew what I had. You chose me every day, even when my life complicated yours. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that choice, of your love of you. Maya's vows were equally simple. Dominic, you were a stranger who became a friend who became my everything. You've shown me that love can be unexpected and complicated and still be absolutely right. I choose you today and every day for the rest of our lives. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was deafening. They kissed as confetti fell around them, and Maya felt like her heart might burst from happiness. The reception was a blur of dancing, laughter, and joy. Maya watched Dominic dance with his mother, saw him laughing with his father, noticed how comfortable he looked with her family and friends. This was the life they'd built together, the world they'd created that was uniquely theirs. Late in the evening, as they slow danced under string lights with their friends and family around them, Maya rested her head on Dominic's chest. Happy, he murmured. Impossibly happy. You, more than I can put into words. They honeymooned in Italy for 3 weeks, exploring tiny villages and eating incredible food and falling even more in love with each other. When they returned to New York, it was to the apartment they'd chosen together, a beautiful space that was neither his nor hers but theirs. Life settled into a new rhythm. Maya continued her work at the youth center, now as director after her predecessor retired. Dominic balanced his business responsibilities with making time for their relationship, for their life together. They hosted dinner parties, traveled when they could, and spent quiet evenings at home just being together. A year after their wedding, Maya came home from work to find Dominic in the kitchen, attempting to cook dinner. The kitchen was a disaster, but he looked so proud of himself that she couldn't help but laugh. "What's the occasion?" she asked. "Do I need an occasion to cook for my wife? You do when you never cook," he grinned sheepishly. "Fair point. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." Maya's heart skipped. Should I be worried? No, at least I hope not. He turned off the stove and came to stand in front of her, taking her hands. "I've been thinking about what we talked about kids, about starting a family, and I think I'm ready if you are." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. They'd talked about having children eventually, but had agreed to wait until they'd had more time as just the two of them. But a year of marriage had only made her more certain that Dominic was the person she wanted to build a life with, to raise children with. "I'm ready too," she said softly. 6 months later, Maya stood in their bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test. When she showed Dominic, he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at once. The pregnancy was mostly easy, though Maya complained about being uncomfortable, and Dominic became hilariously overprotective. He insisted on going to every doctor's appointment, read every pregnancy book he could find, and turn the spare bedroom into a nursery that was both beautiful and practical. Their daughter, Emma, was born on a snowy February morning. She had Dominic's dark hair and Maya's eyes, and from the moment Maya held her, she knew her heart would never be the same. Watching Dominic with Emma was a revelation. He was gentle and patient, singing to her in the middle of the night, talking to her like she could understand every word. He'd take her to visit the youth center, showing her off proudly to the kids who'd become like extended family. "She's going to grow up knowing she can do anything," Dominic said one evening as they watched Emma sleep in her crib. "She will," Maya agreed. "She has pretty incredible parents." "She has an incredible mother. I'm just trying to keep up." Maya leaned against him, feeling complete in a way she'd never experienced before. "We make a good team, the best team." 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Oliver. Their family felt complete. Life was chaotic with 2 young children, demanding careers, and all the complications that came with Dominic's public profile. But it was also full of love and laughter and moments of perfect happiness. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Dominic surprised Maya with a weekend away, just the two of them, while his parents watched the kids. They went back to Union Square to the Blue Bottle Cafe and sat at the same table where he'd proposed. "Remember our first date?" Dominic asked. "How could I forget? I was so nervous. So was I. I was terrified you'd be disappointed. And now I get to wake up next to you every morning. I get to raise our children with you. I get to build a life with you." He took her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. "That wrong number text was the best mistake of my life." Maya smiled, remembering that day 5 years ago when she'd received a random message meant for someone else. She'd had no idea that responding to it would change her entire life. That the stranger on the other end would become her best friend, her partner, her husband, the father of her children. "It wasn't a mistake," she said softly. "It was fate." "You really believe that?" "I do. I think we were always meant to find each other." The wrong number was just the universe's way of making it happen. Dominic leaned across the table and kissed her, soft and sweet, just like he had that first day. Around them, the cafe bustled with life, other people having their own first dates and important conversations and ordinary moments. But for Maya and Dominic, this place would always be special. It was where their story had truly begun, where a wrong number had led to everything right. As they left the cafe hand in hand, Maya thought about how much had changed since that first accidental text. She'd gained not just a husband, but a whole new life full of possibilities she'd never imagined. The girl who'd been content with her small apartment and modest job at a youth center had become someone who attended charity galas and traveled the world and raised 2 beautiful children. But she was still herself, still Maya, still the woman who'd responded to a wrong number text with kindness and humor. And Dominic was still the man who'd fallen for her messages before he'd ever seen her face, who'd loved her for who she was before she knew anything about his wealth or status. The money, the lifestyle, the complications of his public profile were all just details. What mattered was the connection they'd built, the love they'd nurtured, the family they'd created together. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked as they walked through the city streets. "About how lucky we are, about how a single moment can change everything." "Any regrets?" Maya looked up at him, at this man who'd accidentally texted her all those years ago and somehow become her entire world. "Not a single one." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "Me neither." Best wrong number ever. They walked home through the city they both loved, talking about their kids and their plans for the future and all the little details of their shared life. And Maya thought about how perfect it all was, not in the sense of being flawless, but in the sense of being exactly right for them. Years later, when Emma was old enough to understand, she'd ask how her parents had met. And Maya would smile and tell her about the wrong number text, about months of conversations with a stranger who became everything, about the coffee date where she'd first seen her father's face. She'd tell Emma about the proposal in that same cafe, about the wedding and the honeymoon and all the moments that had led to this family. And Emma would listen wide-eyed, amazed that something as simple as a wrong number could lead to something as big as their entire family. Oliver would roll his eyes, having heard the story 100 times, but secretly he loved it too. They both did. Because it was proof that sometimes the best things in life came from unexpected places, from mistakes that turned into miracles, from strangers who became home. But that was all still to come. For now, on this anniversary evening, Maya and Dominic were just two people in love, walking through the city where they'd built their life together, grateful for every wrong turn that had led them exactly where they were meant to be. They stopped at a street corner, waiting for the light to change, and Dominic's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and laughed. "What?" Maya asked. "My assistant just texted me. She meant to send it to my CFO but got the wrong number." He showed her the message about quarterly reports and budget meetings. Maya grinned. "Are you going to tell her she has the wrong number, eventually? But maybe I'll chat with whoever got this text first, see where it goes." She laughed and swatted his arm. "Don't you dare." "You already found your wrong number romance." "That I did." He put his phone away and wrapped his arm around her waist. "And I'm never letting it go." The light changed and they crossed the street, heading home to their children and their life and all the beautiful chaos that came with it. Behind them, the cafe where they'd first met glowed warmly in the evening light, a beacon of possibility for all the other wrong numbers and right moments still waiting to happen. But for Maya and Dominic, their story was no longer about chance or fate or accidental texts. It was about choice. The choice to respond, to open up, to take a risk on someone they'd never met. The choice to keep showing up, to be honest, to work through complications. The choice to love each other every single day, in big ways and small ways, through easy times and hard times. That first text had been an accident. Everything that came after was deliberate, intentional, chosen. And that made it all the more meaningful, all the more beautiful, all the more theirs. As they reached their building, Dominic held the door for Maya, and she thought about the question he'd asked at the cafe. Any regrets? The answer was still no, would always be no. Because this life they'd built, this love they'd found, this family they'd created, it was worth every moment of uncertainty, every complication, every challenge. Inside their apartment, they could hear Emma calling for them and Oliver's laughter. Their real life was waiting, full and rich and sometimes messy, but always filled with love. Maya took Dominic's hand and together they went inside, ready for whatever came next, grateful for everything that had brought them here. The wrong number that had started it all was long forgotten by everyone else, just another mistaken text in a world full of digital mishaps. But for Maya and Dominic, it would always be the beginning of their greatest adventure, the first word in a story that was still being written, one beautiful day at a time.